Joining me now from San Francisco is Mitali Pattnaik, spokesperson for Gigwalk. Mitali, thanks for joining us this evening. So will Matrix's appointment change Zynga's strategy? Will it change its performance in any significant way, given that Pinchas is still the chief product officer?
It's actually a good question, and it's unclear. It's something that people thought would happen when Mark Pincus hired John Shepard as COO, also a games industry veteran, also from Electronic Arts, and that did not happen. And so people are wondering, in fact, whether Pincus will let go the reins of control a little bit and actually let Matrix run his company. It's so far unclear.
So do you expect to see any change day to day in terms of operations, in terms of making some hit games now with Matrix on board?
Yeah, I mean, as a former social gaming executive and someone from the industry, I would love to see some changes, specifically with regards to how Zynga has gone about focusing on scale and distribution over product quality. So hopefully that will flip. One of the biggest strategic mistakes that Zynga, I think, made early on, and many would agree, was that they focused heavily on scaling both their user base, scaling their revenue, primarily doing so by focusing on distribution through paid channels and through viral channels on Facebook. They did not focus on product quality, which is really interesting in Silicon Valley if you think about it, because the culture of tech companies in Silicon Valley is quite the opposite. The cliche in the Valley is, companies sort of build it and hope that people will come. And in Zynga's case, it's been the opposite. They haven't focused on building great products. They've primarily focused on just scaling and distribution, hasn't served them very well. And I'm really hoping that with the change in CEO, that's something that they will go back to the, sort of retrench and focus on building great quality entertainment.
Well, Farmville, in its heyday, was considered great quality entertainment. And if you look at Zynga's business model, it relied heavily on selling virtual goods to gamers on the Facebook platform, from those virtual cows to those virtual seeds. But it began to disintegrate in the middle of 2012, and we can see that the stock plummeted about 40%. So what does Zynga need to do to get back into the game, so to speak? Is there another revenue stream that they can tap into other than advertising and other than the pay-to-play kind of model of buying those virtual editions?
Yeah, so that's an interesting observation. So Zynga's products and their business model were heavily built around the Facebook as being the dominant social gaming platform. So virtual goods, what you mentioned in Farmville as a business model, was picked by Zynga because at the time, Zynga basically put all of their eggs in the Facebook basket. They bet heavily on Facebook, and they believed that Facebook would be the dominant platform for social gaming. As we all know, that has turned out not to be the case, and mobile, especially smartphones and tablets, have really come into their own as the dominant social gaming platform, and Zynga has not been able to take either the gameplay in terms of the content and therefore also the business model and parlay that into success on mobile. So what they really need to do now is to build games that are designed from ground up for mobile ecosystems and not try to sort of take what worked on the Facebook ecosystem and plug it into mobile, because that has not worked very well for them. Speaking a little bit to the business model options. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, let's focus on the business model. We've got the advertising in and around the game, some product placements, some banners, and we've got the virtual sales. What is another potential revenue stream? Can we see something different from, say, Zynga Poker, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I think what they're doing in the social casino space with, venturing into real money gambling is definitely an interesting move. It's a very nascent market still. I'm not sure that it's clear yet whether Zynga will succeed and dominate that market. The interesting thing about the social casino gaming space is that along with the typical games industry competitors, Big Fish game is one that is doing really well with Big Fish Casino. Zynga now faces competition from actual casino gaming companies. So the largest social casino game is actually now by Caesars, the large casino gaming companies, as well as IGT, who are massive slot machine operators. So it may be a little bit too little too late. I'm unclear whether Zynga can really dominate that space, just given the competition that's already in there and their late entry into that space.
You mentioned Facebook.
Yeah.
Mitali, you mentioned Facebook, and since the departure with Zynga and Facebook, Zynga not only focuses on putting its games on its own site and on mobile, now with Pattnaik on board, do you think they should be thinking bigger and thinking in terms of a gaming console, perhaps?
That's a great question and a segue into what I was about to say. Yeah, definitely with Pattnaik on board, I would think that they would at least consider consoles as an option. Again, going back to not having placed this sort of huge bet on Facebook and really not been able to turn their games into profitable enterprises on any other medium, I think now is the time for them to sort of look back on that strategy and decide whether console games will be something that will work for them. Interestingly, both Google and Apple are rumored to be getting into the console business, which may be great news for Zynga.
All right, we'll see how that pans out. Thanks so much for that insight. Mitali Pattnaik, spokesperson for Gigwalk.